Hey there, Julie.
Hi.
You ready to do a recording?
Yes.
I've been wanting to
What
do this one for months and months.
what is it?
As I've been following your story, I've always been interested to know more about how you receive revelation because it's
Hmm.
pretty obvious that you have experienced many different kinds of revelation. You've written about these in your book, and
Hmm.
so I think you, like me and your listeners, have an interest in knowing more about how it works for you. And so I have
Okay.
I have a bunch of little questions I want to ask you, if that's okay.
Okay, we can try.
Okay, so you know I have kind of a scientific approach to learning. So humor me on this, okay? It might be a little unorthodox, but I want to ask you to classify the different kinds of revelation that you receive.
Mm. Okay. Do you want me to just start listing them off or what?
Yes, yes, give me a big list and then maybe we'll expound on a few or two.
I was to say, yeah, my mind is a little bit, um, well, I'm really tired. I didn't get a great night's rest, so it's a little bit cloudy today. So I might not have an all-inclusive list. Something might come to me later, but I'll try. Um, the first thing is different types of sight. So I have regular dreams, then I have night visions. Then I'll be awakened in the night and have a vision at night, but while awake. I'll have day visions, different types of day visions, everything from seeing things in my spiritual eyes or in my mind's eye to actually seeing them as if I'm seeing them with my own eyes. Then I have what you call visuals, or what I call visuals, which is where I'll have a visual of somebody in present day time or past or future, depending on the circumstance of what the Lord's trying to communicate. And for instance, on that, it could be, um, I might have an impression. So then I have thought impressions. I have thoughts that come like little sentences or a few words, sometimes a few sentences at a time. And then I get promptings. Sometimes I hear that in the form of a thought voice. Other times it's actual, like, comes like a voice through the spirit, um, but it's so profound that it's as if it's audible. Um, Sometimes it's through like spiritual ears versus physical ears in that manner. Often it's through thought intent or thought impression. I get what, like you and I have talked about before, downloads where just and with that comes a visual of like pure knowledge that's being downloaded into my brain. So there's a lot of different ways. So it's the different ways of sight revelation, hearing revelation, and thought revelation, and then one of the most profound ways that kind of seals it with all of those coming either singularly or collectively is through feelings in my heart. So then you have the feeling that comes with it, and that's a feeling of warmth or comfort. I actually feel it in my heart. I'm so sensitive to energy that I will feel the energy around me in varying degrees of light and dark, and then I will often see that either in my mind's eye or with my physical eyes. And so it's multisensory, and sometimes it just comes in one form and fashion, and other times it's almost like the message is so important that I'll get a multifaceted revelation that comes with that
Uh,
particular revelation.
That
And then I also get visitors from the other side of the veil. Sorry, can I keep going?
Yeah, keep going. That's great.
I get visitors from the other side of the veil. Often, most often, I see them in my mind's eye. I smell them. I see them sometimes with my physical eyes, and I feel them around me. Um, and that can be near or far. I can also see things from a distance. So, for instance, if I'm working with somebody on the relief effort, I will be shown something that needs to happen, like in Idaho. I'll be told to make a phone call. I talk to that person, and I can often see what they're doing or what they're struggling with or what they're wearing. Um, Maybe I get a visual of, um, like it comes with a visual, but it'll come with an impression or a thought, and I'll be told that I need to ask a question to get clarification, and then I'll get a confirmation because they will actually tell me what's going on. I don't generally show my hand there. I don't generally tell people what I experience because it's personal, and also I don't want them to be freaked out or think I'm, you know, watching them or something.
So you've learned by this stage in your life some things you just don't talk about.
Most things I don't talk about.
Hmm. Okay. Are there any other categories, I guess, or classes of revelation?
Yeah, there are. Those cover it for me for the most part, the major ways. Although trying to explain that to someone who doesn't experience it is like trying to tell somebody what ice cream tastes like if they've never even heard the word ice cream.
Right.
So, let alone had an ice cream cone, So, I find that the best way to teach people, excuse me, to teach people about this or for them to understand what it's like is for them to actually experience it
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So this is kind of akin to a conversation we had a couple podcasts ago when we just kind of talked about prayer, and we used
Hmm.
the metaphor of music. And I think that in my life, I've often been guilty of thinking of revelation as just having one flavor, one sound, and
Hmm.
it's just a symphony. And so I feel like it's important to classify these so that we can begin to understand that there are different types and different degrees. So I guess I want to ask you also, with each of those classifications of revelation that you just mentioned, would it be accurate to say that each one has a degree of power associated with it?
I think in their individual right, they can be or are just as powerful as any other. But when you put two or more together at the same time on a multi-sensory level, then it becomes more powerful, increases its power and intensity to eventually give you a sure knowledge. And so that's where I am on a lot of things. Um, it's one thing to have a thought impression come and you think that your ancestor said something to you because you remember what your grandma's voice sounded like when she was living in mortality, and you hear through thought the same energy, or you feel the same energy when she's passed the other side of the veil. It's a whole different level when you actually see her spirit, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So, so it all just kind of encompasses into one conglomeration of power. And the best way that I could describe it is if when we know that God is omniscient, well, what's the definition of that? He's all knowing. And how do you become all knowing? Well, here on earth, we have five or six senses, but in the eternities, there's an unlimited number of sensory motor and sensory experiences that the spirit experiences. Here in mortality, most mortals know that you have an ethereal body, which is spirit body. You have a physical body. You have a or temporal body. You have mental bodies. You have emotional bodies. You have a cosmic body, and you have auric bodies. But we are actually made up of multiple layers that help make up who we really are. Even more bodies than that. And so God, in his infinite wisdom, knows that, and he utilizes that knowledge to communicate with his children and to get the work done of creation.
Do you find with yourself that there's a more frequent mode of revelation?
I've noticed patterns. It used to be that, well, let me put it this way. I've come to understand for me that there's a pattern that sometimes I will see something in advance, or have foreknowledge of it through vision, that it it won't come together, and I won't have so I'll see something and then I'll get a belief or have faith in what I'm seeing, and then as I exercise that seed of faith, the Lord will tell me more. and make known to me more through other sensory motor revelation. And that will increase my capacity to have more faith and then more understanding. And so I see this progression of having faith that I could believe on the words of Christ, for instance, or believe that I can have revelation. Then he gives me, through that mustard seed of faith, he gives me an experience and can be something very simple. And then I exercise my faith through that power of belief. Faith is an action word, so then I exercise action and going forward with what I think I am seeing or hearing or understanding. And then the understanding actually comes because I've acted in a proactive manner. And then after the understanding comes a knowledge. And so it goes from like faith to belief to understanding to knowledge, and going from knowledge then on to sure knowledge.
So it's very much a process, a pattern. It's not just a
Yeah,
one-time event or experience.
no, it's not. It's not for me, and I don't think it is for anyone.
Now,
It's multifaceted.
what about like your NDE in 2004? Would you consider that kind of a one-time big,
Well,
powerful experience?
well, it was one time big, powerful, but I've had multiple NDEs and I've had multiple dreams and visions. And even before I had that NDE, I was shown that I was sick in the hospital. So I had dreams and visions about that NDE before I had the NDE. So the Lord gave me kind of foreknowledge on some of that. But I didn't get the full picture. I just saw that I was sick in the hospital. I had no idea that I was going to have an NDE.
And do you find yourself often experiencing or like recalling things from your NDE, and so it's almost like that revelation continues to give you more
Yes,
revelation?
yes, it's an ongoing revelatory experience. Sorry, my dog is barking at my other. We got a new puppy, and my dog, who's 3, is not happy that the puppy's on my lap. Sorry.
Okay, so and what about the law of witnesses? Is that another form of revelation for you?
Yes, yes. The Lord always works in patterns of at least 2 to 3 witnesses, if not more.
Okay,
After you exercise faith, He will then bring the witnesses.
that makes sense. And how do those witnesses come to you?
They come in the form of, most often, the form of people, mortals here on the earth. Um,
And what does that look like?
well, it can be somebody at church or a neighbor or a family member that says something to me, um, that is a lesson I needed to learn, or maybe the Spirit has whispered in my ear something that I need to do. And then a human being will confirm that by saying, bringing up that same topic, for instance.
Okay, so
Um,
so it's like you have a vision or a dream or something, and you're kind of wondering what it means, and then maybe somebody at church or at the grocery store says something, and
right,
it invokes that second witness, and then you kind of move it up in your certainty of or clarity
right,
of whatever it is you were trying to be taught.
right. And the same happens in the spirit realm. So, with what I experience, I'll have a visitor from the other side of the veil, for instance, that will tell me something, but then it's it's still spirit matter, and you can still feel like, well, it's nice to get a message from somebody from the other side, but it would be really nice to have a confirmation from a mortal. Like, we tend to believe mortals more than we do spiritual messages, and so, for instance, and we like to see the black and white, right? Um, so like, I'll have a dream about an earthquake in, say, New Zealand or Chile or something. I will even energetically feel that or be awakened in the middle of the night with dreams of that or visions, or my body will actually have a physical reaction to that energy that could be clear across the planet. But I won't have a confirmation that there was actually an earthquake until somebody sends me something from Dutch Sense and tells me there was an earthquake. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
So now I'm kind of thinking about this degree of magnitude. Like
Hmm.
you get revelation, but sometimes you're uncertain about it or what it means. But gradually, by and by, you gain confidence and certainty. Is that fair to say?
Hmm. Right. That's good. Hmm.
And so when you speak on these podcasts or like when you testified of the Wasatch Wake Up coming, let's
Hmm.
take that example. The Wasatch Wake Up when you spoke on the Brian Hyde
Hmm.
show a couple years ago.
Hmm.
You to what degree of certainty were did you have when you testified of those things?
Um, well, I have 100% sure knowledge that there will be an earthquake on the Wasatch.
Yeah.
I have an understanding of the times and seasons, and I have um, need for a lot of clarity still for understanding when it will actually be, for instance,
Yeah.
because I haven't been given a date. I don't know if that answers it, but
No, that answers it. I think it
yeah.
does. Okay, so just a few more questions here. Um,
Mhm.
you've received a significant amount of revelation. You've put a lot of that in your books. You put it on radio shows and these podcasts. What would you say to those who say you're overstepping your bounds on what you've received for revelation? Do you,
Um,
in other words, taking your message to the world? Some people have this view that any kind of revelation is personal, it's sacred, you keep it to yourself.
well, that's a false belief that's been passed down to people, and I say to them that that's wrong.
Yeah,
That's never been taught by Christ. In fact, we've been taught that we should stand as witnesses of Christ and we should stand as witnesses of truth. And there are some things I keep to myself, very personal things.
yeah,
And if anybody had any idea about what I experience, they would know that. But they're not in my brain and in my body,
yeah,
and they don't hear and see what I do.
yeah,
Um, when we are called upon by the Holy Spirit to act, then we're compelled to share. We do it at all costs. And with my understanding and my sure knowledge of what my mission is, because it's gone from having faith to believing and seeing and understanding to knowledge, now sure knowledge on at least portions of my mission, not the whole mission, but portions of it, then at all costs, no matter what persecution may come, no matter what people say, whether they agree or disagree, I have to push that aside. I have to step into my zone and I have to basically do whatever is required of me that the Lord is asking me to do, regardless of what people think. And no matter what their opinions are or their disagreements or their belief systems.
hmm,
And I have to be in my truth and my truth because it's my story, not theirs, right? No one can tell me what my story is or what my plan is because that's not their plan. It's not their story.
yeah.
It's not their story to tell, and it's not their story to judge or criticize, even though people do. And so um,
You know,
we are we are compelled as sons and daughters of God who stand for Christ to testify of him and to testify of all truth to combat the darkness.
yeah, that's good. I feel like on that note, and thanks, that's a great answer. I feel like we've kind of been taught keep your sacred experiences to yourself, and I think that might mean if you have a witness of the Savior or something, that's pretty sacred, pretty personal. You keep that to yourself.
Right.
But there've been so many times when somebody's shared a dream or even a vision or some kind of insight that they've gotten spiritually that they've shared with me, and it's just lifted me up so much. And I feel like I've had my own, and I've shared some of those with others, and I've seen the reaction they've had and how it's lifted and bolstered their spirit, and so I feel like
Mm-hmm.
sharing those things can be a really powerful way to draw people close to the Savior.
It is, and it unifies people. And the adversary would love it if we felt like we weren't supposed to share that stuff. It's one thing to say, I'm embarrassed to share something, or I have a fear to share something because it's not going to be accepted, or I don't know if people are going to like me if I, but it's a whole different level for him to lie to people and tell them you're not supposed to. You're being a naughty girl. Julie Rowe, you're naughty if you tell people your sacred stories. He has tried every tactic on me, everything from telling me since I was a young child that people would think I was crazy to upping the ante after I had my NDE on levels that people have no concept of. And if I have a face to face with Satan, it's put me in a sure knowledge category that he really does not like me and he really doesn't want me speaking truth because he's afraid of the truth and people being exposed to it. And people can choose to believe whether or not they believe me, if they just think I'm crazy or they think I'm making it up or they think I have some ulterior motive. But I'm here to testify and tell people this is real. I'm not making it up. And where there's light, the opposite's always there with opposition. And so I I look like one of the questions you and I've talked about is like, why is there so much opposition to Julie Rowe? There are a lot of other people on this planet that have dreams and visions, and many of them that have seen the same thing I have, and they are not getting the degree of opposition that I am getting
Hmm.
within and without the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want to thank the opposition because it lets me know how important it is that I continue to speak out and speak boldly. And it has emboldened me because as I've moved along, especially in the last 3 years, and I've had severe adversarial attacks and confrontations by the dark side, and we're talking hooded guys showing up in my living room. And so, and I'm not talking mortals, although I have had mortals as well threaten me. So that, I don't like to focus on that, but I want to focus on the light. But people need to wake up and realize there's a lot more to my story than I have shared. There's a lot more to my story than's in the books, and there's a lot more to my story that's still coming in the next decade. And the more they hear me speak, I'm hoping that my voice will resonate and they will recognize truth because they will know someone doesn't just do this. They don't put their life on the line. They don't put their reputation on the line, and they don't speak that boldly unless they know something that they're claiming to know,
Hmm.
right? It's not the cost benefit analysis doesn't work. People don't do that.
Right.
It's not smart, you know?
That's right.
It's not smart. And so I am passionate about this because, and I think if anybody experienced what I did and they were to really sit back and think about the possibility that I really am speaking the truth and these things really did happen to me, if it happened to them, they would do the same thing to the degree I'm doing it because they too would be compelled by the opposition.
Yes, I agree with that. And so if I summarize a little bit of what you just said, I think we could add another type of revelation there. It's almost like when you receive opposition, that in itself is a form of revelation to you, or like a confirmation.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you start recognizing the patterns of the Lord and you start recognizing the patterns of the adversary and how they work for and against each other, right? In a opposite, like an opposite purpose and opposite um, balance in the universe.
Hmm.
It the opposition wakes you up, right?
Yeah.
If you look in the scriptures and it talks about, Satan saying to Adam and Eve in the garden, I see that your eyes are not yet opened, in a very literal, real way, and also in the spiritual eyes, it was Satan who came to them in the garden and opened their eyes.
Hmm.
And that's what he's done for me when he has threatened me or tried other tactics like trying to coerce me to come to his side. I have begged and pleaded with the Lord for greater understanding as to who I am, what my identity was primordially, and trying to seek understanding as to why I'm getting thrashed. And the Lord has answered me on that on a lot of points. Not on everything, but on several of them.
Thank you for sharing what you've learned about Revelation. I think you've experienced quite a range of, or I want to use the word spectrum. You've experienced quite a wide spectrum of emotions and revelatory experiences. And I think
Mhm.
there's a lot we can learn from that.
Thank you. I'm still learning a lot. I like the word spectrum because if you look at it like light on the light spectrum, because I'm visual, right? And many of us are visual and we don't realize how visual we are. You look at the spectrum of light and you've got on the far end And if you study light and darkness, it with color and the color spectrum, it goes on and on and on and on. You go, the lighter you get, the higher energy vibration, the lower you get in energy vibration, the darker it gets. And those colors cannot coincide. You can't have the brightest bright scientifically be in a room with the dark. They don't go together. You have to
Mm-hmm.
pick. But there's everything in that whole spectrum. So you have dark energy, dark matter, and then you have gray matter in a whole variety of the spectrum. And it gets lighter and lighter or darker and darker depending on the degree or the distance or the angle or the direction you're going. And I have seen a lot in the spectrum, both in this world and in other places, other dimensions. And um, the only way that you can explain that is through a supernatural explanation because it is not of this world,
Mm-hmm.
but it's right here around us. And many of us just have the veil over our eyes, but we even have so many energy blocks and things, so we're not in tune with the energy around us. And the more in tune we become with the energy around us, more in tune with our bodies, more in tune with our spirit, the more we connect our spirit to our physical body and our spirit to our spirit, the more I think we wake up to our divine nature and who we really are.
Yeah, that's great. That's true. For my own
So,
witness, as my spectrum, I guess, of revelation has broadened and expanded, I've experienced some pretty intense forms of revelation, and I love them so much. I've just come to view those as my most valued and cherished possessions. Is those insights that I've
mhm,
gotten from the other side of the veil. Do you feel the same?
absolutely. I do. I cherish them. I value them um, more than life itself, actually, because that knowledge is something we had premortally. That knowledge is something we'll take with us. And this mortal body is, until it's resurrected, is a temporary housing for us. But the spirit is eternal, and it's through revelation while we're on the planet here that the Lord communicates with us, and it's meant to be a help to us. It's meant to be an aid to us, and it's meant to help us draw closer to Him. But it does take work.
Well said. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us today, Julie. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your questions and your time, Eric. I appreciate you.
We'll see you next time.